here today at Birmingham at Think Tank. We're expecting 30 members of the public, and they've been invited along to two events, one today and then one following next week, and they'll be discussing geoengineering. The work's being funded by the Natural Environment Research Council, and really the purpose of it is to understand an initial test to see what the public, how they react to the ideas of geoengineering and the different technologies that we're going to be discussing today which are involved.
There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just as long as we can find out what people think about these things, that's what's important. It's not that they agree with them or disagree with them, it's what do they think about them.
I think it's been interesting because I've not known anything about geoengineering, so just learning a bit more about what the science world is trying to do. It gives us some background which we can go away and tell our children and tell our families and so on, and spread the word a bit more, you know.
It's been quite educational so far. There have been a lot of things that have been mentioned that I didn't realise, like the way that we could take it out of the atmosphere, but then it's quite worrying because these people are doing these tests and experiments and things like that. You just don't know what the adverse effects are going to be and how it's going to affect us all. And it's just kind of like an eye-opener in that way, because you need to hear both sides of the story, you need to hear both arguments, you need to hear the negative and the positive effects. But some of them are quite scary, like they're reflecting the sunlight, and I just don't know if I agree with that. I think that's something that's a natural occurrence, and whether it should be stopped is... I don't know what kind of effects that would have, but obviously we'll be told about them later on.
What we have here is the Earth's energy budget, and I guess getting that concept across is quite important because it's first fundamental to global warming, and secondly explains both the geoengineering ideas. So I guess, yeah, the Earth is warmed by the sun first of all, and as the sunlight reaches the Earth, it's reflected by clouds and at the Earth's surface, where it's absorbed, and from there it kind of re-emits as thermal radiation. And this is where CO2 comes in, because it acts to trap this thermal radiation in the atmosphere and warms the Earth, and will warm it above its current levels if we increase the level of CO2. So these two geoengineering ideas, the first, which would remove the CO2 from the atmosphere, directly cooling the planet, and the second, which would, at some level in the atmosphere, reflect more sunlight and so act to cool the planet.
I came here not knowing anything really, but I'll go away knowing a lot more. And the more people that could take part in these seminars, the better.
It was quite a lot to take in, because I was not aware of any of these ideas for combating global warming and that, so it was all new to me. I think the ideas that seem to be the best ones to me is the ones that stayed sort of nearer to nature, like the planting of trees and like the lime one. The ones that seem to be, well, they all interfere with nature, but the ones that are really sort of drastically interfering with nature, like the mirrors in space, I agree with my colleague here. I thought that was probably a step too far.
Shall we discuss, what kind of feelings you got from other people?
When they talk about deforestation, we've got no idea of numbers. We were just thinking our concept is the local wood or whatever.
So in terms of criteria, you'd like to see the impact kind of given a value of some description, so no.
And is the variation in the types of tree that's planted for the efficiency?
The cost. We're in a global recession, so where's the money coming from? The fragile economies, then where's all the CO2, where's it's all going to be stored?
I think the younger people are going to have a different view because we're going to have to live through it. You've got the older generation, oh, we'll never be able to do this and we'll never be able to do that, whereas the younger generation, we've grown up with technology. Technology to us is the be-all and end-all. We don't get a game, we don't get a board game out nowadays, we get a computer out or things like that. So to us, technology interests us as well, so if we can do something technological, it's going to be more interesting to our generation rather than plant a few trees.
I think it's the time scale. Mainly, how long is it going to take so we can actually see something changing? I think all the ideas, it takes over maybe a good 100 years for something to happen. but we need action now.
It's not real life, it's not what is definitely going to happen, it's just a possible situation where a certain type of person or company might invest in one of these technologies and what some of the repercussions might be. So this is story one.
Is it worth it that for the people in Europe they're benefiting because if they're getting cooler, but other parts of the world are suffering drought or changes in weather? Is it worth it?
No, because that's what we're meant to be combating in the first place. So it doesn't. If Europe's getting a bit cooler, it doesn't. If the other places are getting worse, then it seems to defeat the object.
The advantages outweigh the disadvantages. I think that's where the monitoring comes in to see what if it's more beneficial to carry on with it, and the benefits of it outweigh the non-benefits. Then that's it. Obviously, when it's the other way around, then you have to stop it.
I don't like the idea. Just don't, because you could do something natural like grow wheat here. We don't need to do this biochar thing. It's not effective. Well, I don't think it is, because you could use that land and grow crops, and then the earth's fertilised. And okay, it may not be totally environmentally friendly, but it's something more healthier. But with biochar, you're taking that mountain land and just taking carbon out and sticking it somewhere else.
So I'm going to show you what some of the commentators and other people think.
I conduct research that looks at the way that people respond to climate change, so the psychology of communicating climate change, and also research that looks at public attitudes.
I think with a lot of these technologies they need to definitely research it a bit more and put more results to the table, and then maybe we could have, maybe people think differently of the outcomes if we knew sort of more how it would have an effect on people, basically.
I've been intrigued by all sorts of things they've said, but the sense that they want to understand more what the future is going to be like before they make decisions, and I think I can understand that basis. The perturbing thing is things are changing so fast, it's a matter of how long we've got in order to make decisions. And a sense of whether people should be responsible for this or whether we should just let nature take its course. And that's an interesting decision, because it depends how bad you think it might get into the future. And of course there are very apocalyptic scenarios and there are some much less so. So I'm interested to see how people react to the future in quite a long time into the future too. It's because of course we're talking about 100 years' time when we're talking about a future generation rather than ourselves.
The conclusion I would have is that mitigation is the long-term solution, whereas geoengineering is buying us the time for that long-term solution. And it's still very uncertain to me whether any of the geoengineering technologies will work and not have adverse effect on what we've already got, a problem that we've got to solve, and it just becomes a bigger problem. And do we continually keep investing in geoengineering to buy us that extra time and to mitigate any side effects it's had? So do we get a knock-on effect from all this? So it's all very uncertain to me.
Jump in both feet first and put up the technology and deal with the problems later would be the sort of view of the generation around my age. It would be get it sorted, and whatever happens we're going to have to sort it afterwards.